On this week's show, our favorite MCU moments, Joe Hill joins the DCU, and the end of The Walking Dead. Check it out. It's Previews World Weekly, and it's happening right now. What's up, Previews World? It's Wednesday. It's New Comic Book Day, which means it is time for Previews World Weekly. I am one of your hosts, Troy Jeffrey Allen.
And I'm Thea, and we're here every week to remind you guys to stop at a comic shop and get involved in what's happening in the world of comics.
I just want to point out neither one of us are wearing shoes.
Why is that relevant?
I don't know.
To anything.
I just think it's fun.
Anyway, if you enjoy our show,
yes.
Before we get into the show, we want to remind you guys to like and subscribe to keep all the nerd news flowing.
Yes, please do.
Yes.
Because you get amazing content like what we just did.
Totally.
So last week we goofed. We forgot to mention that there's a new catalog out this week.
We completely forgot.
We completely forgot. So apologies. I already did a catalog video. We gave you a nice little rundown of some of the stuff inside. It's actually some really cool stuff. I mean, it's cool stuff every month. Like, you'd be hard-pressed not to find something for yourself. But I do want to give a shout-out to the two comics featured on our cover this month. Flash Forward by Scott Lobdell and Brett Booth and Norm Rapman.
Yeah.
Which, if you've been reading Heroes in Crisis, you know where that's spinning out from. Wally West has been a bad, bad boy. He did something horrible. I won't get into it, but this is the follow-up to that series. Also, from Burger Books is Everything by Christopher Cantwell and ING Colbard, which is very easy to find on Instagram because no one else has named that. So
I'm afraid.
Yeah. No, it's actually pretty cool. It's like about this mall that has like nefarious supernatural.
This is why I'm afraid.
Yeah, well, that's also fair. It's actually pretty interesting.
It looks
so
really cool.
Definitely check that out. That's from Dark Horse, and of course, tons of other stuff in the catalog this month. So
Yeah.
definitely pick it up at your local comic shop. But we're just going to dive right into it because we have a meaty show later on the second half. So we're just going to dive into what's at comic shops. Anime is here, and she's going to show you what's at your local comic shop today.
Hey Previews World, Mia here. Do you know what new comics are coming out this week? No? Well, let's take a look. Here's what's at comic shops for the week of July 3rd, 2019. Is that it? No way. Your comic shop has something for every type of customer. So stop at a comic shop today, and I'll see you back here next week.
And that's just some of what's available at your local comic shop this week. If you want more, head on over to previewsworld.com/new releases, and you should want more. But Thea is going to give her suggestion. I'm going to give mine. So what are you looking forward to this week?
We have Thumbs, number 2. Thumbs. But the series is a 5-part miniseries from Image. And it's sort of the Social Network meets Blade Runner.
Okay.
So the concept is, say Mark Zuckerberg decided to create his own army of tech-obsessed teens and tell them to take over the government.
Okay, interesting. All right.
So what's the fallout there? What's
Right.
the implication? So there's this character named Charlie Thumbs Fellows, that's his nickname, and he is a member of this army, and he was raised by an app that's called the Mom app, right? So he's part of this group of people that are, coming up literally in
Being
social
raised
media.
by the internet, yeah.
Yeah, by social media and the internet. And he finds himself in the center of a war where, non-tech folk and the whole technology clash is
Right.
happening.
Yeah.
So seems pretty neat.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. I actually didn't know that much about it. Like, it was kind of like, is this about competitive thumb wrestling? Like, what is this? Which,
Fair
that's
enough.
a good idea.
Why not?
But actually, no, it was like this idea of like teens who are trying to take over the government on behalf of Mark Zuckerberg.
And I spent the weekend with a teenager,
Yeah.
and I'm now thinking, oh no.
Right. Raised by the internet. That's
Plausible.
That's really interesting, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Mom app.
Right,
Like an
yeah.
app that raises children.
Right.
Weird.
Yeah, I like that actually. That's really interesting. I might check that out myself.
Exactly.
For me, my pick this week is Space Bandits. Big shock, I chose a Mark Miller book.
Yeah.
It's Matteo Scalera and Mark Miller, and I actually got to read this one before we did the show this week because they sent us a comp copy. They didn't send us a comp copy of Walking Dead, We'll talk about that later. Yeah, so it's from Image Comics, and it's Mark Miller and Matteo Scalera, like I mentioned, and it's basically space pirates. Like, that's the entire concept, just like a little mini-series. And you have these two different groups of space pirates, and their leaders are betrayed. And I won't give away any of the other details, but it's just a fun book.
Mutiny.
It's got tons of sass, which is like what you read Mark Miller for.
Yes.
And it's got some fun like pop culture references and action
nice.
sequences. Also, the other cool thing about this, and I don't know if you can really tell by the cover, but the idea that they open with is that like it took like a decade for the 80s to reach the Midwest. So imagine how long it takes for the 80s to reach space. So everyone is dressed like somebody in the 80s, basically.
Perfect.
Like, it's very, very retro in that regard. So
I love that.
There you go.
The resurgence of the 80s is real.
It's real.
And I love it.
Yeah, and it fits space stuff for some reason.
It really does.
Yeah, the whole Flash Gordon thing is very much in play here and all this other
For
stuff.
sure.
What else are you looking forward to this week?
Smooth Criminals. So that the volume 1 of the trade paperback is out right now. And this is a really cool concept as well. There's this hacker, and her name is Brenda, and she, expects to find like money and secrets and all sorts of, pictures of cats while she's hacking various things on the internet. And she's not expecting to find a cryogenically frozen master thief from the 60s.
Okay, interesting.
Which she does. And she thaws her out, and they become buddies, and they have to like pull off heists together, and it just seems really cool. Yeah.
I remember that. I remember when they were pushing that out like a few months back. So,
Yeah.
okay, there's a trade now. That's
Yep.
awesome. Another one I'm really looking forward to this week is Lois Lane #1. It's Greg Rucka. We were talking about Wonder Woman. I say Hiketia, but you said Hecate, I think?
Hecate, yeah.
Last week. But he wrote Wonder Woman, like, it's one of the bigger books he's known for, on top of a bunch of other cool stuff. Fan favorite writer. And I've always kind of low-key wanted like a Daily Planet comic.
Yeah.
And we're actually getting that here. And it's Mike Perkins who did Stephen King's The Stand.
Cool.
So it's going to have solid artwork.
Yeah.
And the concept is she's unmasking some sort of conspiracy. And
As she should be.
I'm kind of wondering if it's going to be related to the Leviathan arc that's going on right now.
Oh, sure.
But at the same time, even if it's not, I'm just down for a Daily Bugle. It said Daily Bugle.
Whoa.
Uh-oh. Daily Planet,
Whoa.
don't come after me. I'm down for a Daily Planet comic.
Absolutely.
And also there's going to be a Jimmy Olsen one soon, which I'm also
Yeah.
really interested in.
Yeah.
And so those are our picks, but
Yep.
what can people look forward to this week?
So we also have Sea of Stars #1 out this week, and this is about like a space trucker. So you see, it sounds like space trucker sounds like a really cool job,
Right, yeah.
but really it's really boring. So when recently widowed Gil gets a long haul gig across the universe, he's like, that's fine, it's gonna be easy. I'll bring my son along for the ride. And then their big rig gets bitten in half by a giant space leviathan,
Well, there you go.
as happens.
In space.
It's
Right.
the hazards of the job.
All right.
Right. So they get separated, and he has to save his son, right? And then Caden is getting help from a talking space monkey riding a dolphin. Again, as one does.
Right, yeah, it happens.
And then he's thinking, maybe I'm manifesting these new strange powers. What's happening?
Oh, okay.
So yeah, it's a science fiction series that has like a little bit of never-ending story with a little bit of like the imaginative weirdness of like Miyazaki films.
Okay.
Is what they say.
all right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah.
I don't think it was that was featured on our cover like a few months ago, and so like it was a gem of the month. It's also important to point out that's Jason Aaron and Dennis Hopeless. So like if you've been a fan of any of their work, and I know a lot of people are, it's worth picking up. It should be a fun
It
book.
looks really
I'm
cool.
also from Image. Also, big surprise this week. Like, we had a long conversation about how we should discuss this because we don't want to spoil it for people.
Yes.
But Robert Kirkman put out a tweet earlier in the week, and it looks like. See, I'm not sure if I want to even dive too much into it. Basically, look, Rick from Walking Dead died like 2 weeks ago.
Yep.
And he's a major thread throughout the
Yes.
entire Walking Dead series. So the understanding is that the series is coming to a close. And this is a surprise because there was no preamble to this. Like, it's just like, I guess Rick would be the preamble. But at the same time, like, no one really knew that 193 is it. So will there be another book? Will there be a spinoff? I don't know.
We don't know,
But this is a major moment in comics,
Yes.
and like it snuck up on everybody.
Yes.
So like, yeah, definitely keep an eye out for that. I can only imagine what the speculator market's going to look like, and yeah, and like the book's $3.99. So how about that? So there you go. So definitely check out Walking Dead 193. I know a lot of people will. So that's it for comics this week. Well, not it, but
Right.
we're going to kick it over to Thea, and she's going to handle the news, and she's going to tell us about what else has been going on in the world of comics the last 7 days. Check it out.
In celebration of Marvel's 80th anniversary this year, scores of comic creators, some Marvel icons, some first-timers, are assembling for an epic comic book story in honor of the very first issue of Marvel Comics. This August, get ready for Marvel Comics number 1000, a massive collaborative effort that will see 80 different creative teams weave together one expansive story. In honor of an 80-year legacy, we're proud to present an incredible lineup of variants, all by an exceptional roster of artists that exemplify the richness and scope of Marvel history. Check out the PREVIEWSworld website to get a better look at all the variants and prepare to collect these iconic covers soon.
Yeah. Shout out to Jen Bartel and shout out to Mark Brooks and shout out to Greg Smallwood because those covers are awesome.
Beautiful.
I love them. Yeah, just amazing looking covers.
They're so beautiful
Yeah.
and they're so Marvel and just yes.
Yeah, just like great covers. Like,
Yes.
yeah, I'm sure one of those is going to end up on wallpaper on my phone eventually.
Good.
Also, I want to point out that like they're still announcing covers.
Yes.
So like you're going to get those. You're going to get like I think it's like the top 8. Don't make me a liar, but like like the first couple of them.
yeah, a lot.
But there's still more that have yet to be revealed. So definitely
But
keep
wait,
an eye out.
there's more.
Yeah.
As usual. Up in the sky, in the dark of the night, trust no one, for the Secret Six walk among us. Spinning out of the devastating events of The Batman Who Laughs, Superman and Batman are together once more in an all-new monthly series, and they're facing a terrifying new threat that could strike from anywhere. The Dark Knight and the Man of Steel must journey into the depths of Gotham City to learn which of their fellow heroes has been transformed into the horrifying horseman of their most dangerous and deranged foe ever. Our heroes will need to fight to survive, but an even more dangerous question lurks in the shadows. Can Superman and Batman even trust each other? Catch this new epic adventure coming to comic shops August 28th.
I'm a fan of Superman having to go to Gotham,
Yeah.
like in any story. Just kind of like that contrast is always pretty fun.
Yes.
So yeah. Also, again, great artwork. So
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to it. It's a cool number 1.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
Way to go, DC.
Yeah. Next up, Vampirella is flying high for her big 50th anniversary. Dynamite proudly announces that the upcoming Vampirella number 1 has blasted through expectations and is already a massive success. The upcoming issue by writer Christopher Priest, artist Ergun Gündüz, and a range of top-tier cover artists fronted by Frank Cho will have an initial print run of 130,000 copies. This incredible sales number is the highest for a full-price comic in Dynamite's storied 15-year history. Furthermore, 130,000 copies is higher than all recorded paid circulation numbers for the original Vampirella magazine, making this possibly also the best-selling Vampirella comic book of all time. Dynamite's team is already working hard to continue this success through the year. Vampirella number 2 features an eye-popping main cover from Stanley Art Germ Lau, perhaps the biggest artist in the industry today. Then the next issue is spearheaded by the iconic J. Scott Campbell. Each issue features additional covers from even more talented artists. Maybe there will be more Art Germ. Maybe one of the greatest comic artists of all time will bow out with a Vampirella cover as his final work. Either way, it's shaking out to be quite the anniversary celebration. Pick up Vampirella number 1 at your local comic shop on July 17th.
That's interesting. I didn't catch that last part about one of the greatest comic artists of all time.
Sneaky.
Huh. Very interesting.
Who could that be?
Who could that be?
I don't know.
Huh.
Honestly, I really don't know.
No, we don't
idea.
know. We just speculate.
We're gonna find out.
We're gonna find out. Well, congratulations to Dynamite.
Yeah.
Because this has been this was actually a surprise to I think a lot of people, even them, that it
Yeah.
was just such a hit. But also, I just want to point out, we just dropped to Know Your Heroes about Vampirella that
Yes,
Anna
we
Mia
did.
hosts, and she kind of gives you a rundown of some of the big talents that have been attached to this character over the years, because Christopher Priest is just the most recent. Like Alan Moore's done some stuff, like Warren Ellis has done some, Grant Morrison, so
It's 50
yeah.
years old.
It's 50 years old for a reason, yeah. Actually, I ended up kind of falling in love with the character after having to research some of this stuff. 'Cause I was like, oh, okay,
She's really cool.
it's kind of easy to kind of assume things about the characters.
Yup.
But then when you really dive into it, you're like, this is actually a really interesting concept and has an interesting history. So shout out to
For sure.
Vampirella.
Absolutely. And finally, this October, DC will team up with the best-selling author Joe Hill to present Hill House Comics, a new pop-up line of horror comic books to be released under the DC Black Label line. DC's long-standing tradition of publishing thought-provoking and riveting horror from House of Mystery to classic Sandman will continue with this new line featuring 5 original limited series meant to chill the bones and summon nightmares, with smart, subversive narratives and haunting, heart-stopping visuals. And it all begins this fall, just in time for a very haunting Halloween. The first of these new monthly comics will debut on October 30th with Basket Full of Heads, written by Joe Hill with art by Leomax, followed by 4 other series in subsequent months, titled The Dollhouse Family, The Low Low Woods, Daphne Byrne, and Plunge. In addition, a backup story titled Sea Dogs, written by Hill and featuring lycanthropes terrorizing a crew of sailors at sea, will run in the back of every issue from the line. Check out the first Hill House Comics Spotlight at this year's San Diego Comic-Con, with a panel hosted by Hill and Doyle and other special guests. Seems really cool.
Yeah, we just talked about Vertigo going away, like last week, but like I'm all for DC still trying to be well-rounded.
Absolutely.
In terms of like the stuff that they make available.
And that was definitely something that they said they were going to do.
Exactly,
Right?
yeah,
so
yeah.
It's good to see it actually happening.
Right, exactly. And like I know some people are like, oh, well, Vertigo's gone, so that just means it's all going to go go away.
Right.
But no, it's not.
No,
like they're still
just becoming one.
Exactly. They still have their eye on the prize. They still want to pull in as many readers as possible.
Yes.
So yeah, I'm all for it. Like just a well-rounded Vertigo. Comics for everyone. There you go.
Yeah.
So on that note, we're going to go ahead and kick it over to the Previews Toy Chest. Natasha's here. Check her out. She's going to show you what's available comic shops in the toy section. Here we go.
Hey Previews World, here's this week's rundown of some of the toys, statues, and collectibles hitting store shelves for the first time. Let's take a look inside the Previews Toy Chest for the week of July 3rd, 2019. Want to see more? Be sure to check out Talking Toys, our weekly show that spotlights new collectibles on their way to your friendly local comic shop. Just head over to previewsworld.com/talkingtoys to find out more.
As usual, really cool lineup of toys. Anything catch your eye?
The Kenneth Rackheford Batman.
Yeah.
It just looks cool. I'm
It
not sure if
does.
that's Dark Knight's metal or
Specific stylized, but I mean,
Right.
the style is really cool.
Yeah, really
I
interesting.
really like that version of Batman.
Yeah. So definitely
absolutely.
pick that up if you want to. DC Collectibles,
sure.
making cool stuff. What
Yeah.
about you?
A couple of those busts look really cool.
Yeah,
I like the Jack Skellington.
Right, yeah,
Of
yeah.
course. Nightmare Before Christmas. Does Theo like that?
Of
No.
course.
And then the Spider-Gwen, also super,
the
super
bust.
clean. Yeah.
Cool. So one of the other things that came out this week is the Bruce Lee PVC.
Yes.
And we mentioned before, Diamond Select Toys has the Bruce Lee license.
Yes, they do.
So how about we let somebody win one?
Okay.
There you go.
Ha! Here he is, in all his kung fu glory.
All his Kung Fu glory.
He's beautiful. He's
Heavenly
very cool.
glory, to quote Bruce Lee.
Heavenly glory. So this is the water figure. You can see here he's got some cool water business going on in his hands. He's actually a waterbender. Now we know.
Now we know. He was the first waterbender. There you go.
The first waterbender, which is based on kung fu.
So there you go.
There you go, guys.
Right.
But if you want to if you want to win Bruce Lee here, let us know what your favorite Bruce Lee movie is. Hit us up on social media, Facebook and YouTube, wherever you're watching, and we'll take entries until next week's show, and you can win this one.
Yeah. No, it's actually, I like this. I think it's really cool. I'm pretty certain I haven't read the back of this, but yeah, there is definitely a quote. And I think it's because he has a philosophy about like water and like kung fu. So there you go.
Nobody's surprised.
Nobody's surprised by that.
Yep.
So yeah, definitely check that out. It's actually pretty cool.
Of course, we have the winner from last week.
Yes, we do.
Right? So last week we were giving away the Marvel Gallery Carnage PVC. So our winner is Steve J. Begg, who said that his Sinister Six would be Tarantula, the Steel Spider, Swarm, Scorpion, Skeen, who's formerly known as the Gypsy Moth, and then Carnage.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was like half expecting, I was reading, I was like, oh, he's going with an all bug theme, and then he included Carnage at the end, right?
All right, yeah.
I guess he was trying to game the system in his favor, right? Mention
Fair enough,
Carnage,
yeah.
yeah. But I like it. It was good. Those
Yeah.
characters in there I completely forgot about.
Right,
So
yeah.
well done, man. So now we're going to take a look at a trailer. What we have coming up here is House of X, Powers of 10, and I have to make sure I say that correctly because we've been saying, I think everybody's been saying Powers of X, House of X for a while now.
Yeah.
So check this out. This is from Marvel Comics, and it's about the upcoming Jonathan Hickman series. So a lot of people excited for it. Check it out.
We wanted to take a close look at the X-Men and refocus our efforts to try to see what we can do to bring them back to the prominence that they deserve. I've made no secret of the fact that I'm a huge X-Men fan. First comic I ever read growing up, been a fan my entire life. And when Jonathan Hickman came in with the idea for what he has planned, we knew we found the guy. He is as big an X-Men fan as I am, and he is looking back at the past and building upon what has gone before and taking it to the next level. It truly is a new era for X-Men, but not forgetting anything that has gone before.
House of X and Powers of 10 are two stories that act as one story. They absolutely are separate, but by the end they collide together, and coming out of that is kind of the new paradigm for the X-Men universe.
Jonathan has so many great ideas, and he's packed them into this series. When you get through the other end of it, it's a whole new world of stories that are opened up to you. Things that just wouldn't have been possible for the X-Men before, and it's so great, and there's so much to it.
I'm super fortunate that the artists that we have on the books are Pepe Larraz on House of X and R.B. Silva on Powers of 10. The cool thing is all of the character design and environmental design that we're going to be using for years down the road, and they're knocking that out of the park. It's primal world building, and the two of them are doing as good of a job as you can at it.
As much as Jonathan is relying on the past tales of X-Men as the basis to build this story, it is going to be completely new reader friendly.
It draws on X-Men from every era. It draws on the history of the X-Men and reshapes it. This book is all about getting to the core of what X-Men is and always has been. So if you have been a fan of X-Men at any era, there is something in here for you.
So last Friday, I was on a live stream called Comic Core, and one of the things that was like unanimous across the board, because there was like about 6 people in this live chat, was we're all excited for the X-Men run, like this upcoming Jonathan Hickman X-Men run. Like people were just speculating and excited, and that type of excitement is infectious.
Absolutely.
And I've seen that across the board. Anybody I talked to is like really into it. So yeah,
More X-Men.
more X-Men, like
Always.
particularly this X-Men. I think a lot of people are anticipating what Hickman's going to do. I'm currently reading his Secret War run, which is, I believe, the last thing he did for Marvel.
Cool.
And it's just loaded with imagination. So
here for it.
And speaking of Marvel, we're going to kick it over to Social Swamp right now, but I want to preface this a little bit. So right before Avengers Endgame came out, Nando V Movies got together a bunch of YouTubers, and they did this thing called One Marvelous Scene. And I thought it was really interesting because it was not critics necessarily, but fans unpacking and kind of examining their favorite moments from the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And I thought it was fun because, like, a lot of times people, you look at a lot of top 10 lists or whatever of MCU stuff, there's a lot of obvious stuff.
Right.
Everybody's like, oh, I love Iron Man from
Right.
2008. It's like, we're pretty far removed from that now, guys. But like, I thought it was cool because they really delve into like very specific scenes. So definitely check that out. We'll leave that the link to that playlist in our YouTube video later today, at the end of the show. But we're gonna go ahead and kick it over to you, and then we're gonna talk about some of our favorite scenes from Marvel Cinematic Universe, because guess what? Phase 3 is over. Like, the new Spider-Man movie's out, and that's the end of it. So
Yeah.
it was a perfect time to do this. Check it out, Social Swamp.
So we took a poll from you guys out there, and we wanted to know what your favorite MCU moments are, and we got some really good answers. First up, we have Nathan Sponenberg, who said that Thor's arrival in Wakanda in Infinity War will always be the most chill-inducing for me. Saji Williams said, as much as I'd like to come up with something obscure, my favorite moment was the payoff, the final battle of Endgame. Been waiting for a moment like that for better than 45 years now, and was not disappointed. The Avengers Assemble moment was it for me. Only 2 things wrong there, no Nat and no Vision. Otherwise, it was perfect.
All right, yeah, I'm with that.
Douglas Hirschman said, Steve and Dr. Erskine in First Avenger. I don't want to kill anybody. I just don't like bullies. It gets me every time. Bridget Conley said, Steve finding out who the Winter Soldier is. The scene gets major bonus points for actually adapting dialogue from the comic storyline the movie was based on. Marika Davis, My favorite moment in the MCU is from Doctor Strange, when the cloak of levitation wraps itself around a zealot's face and repeatedly slams him to the floor, allowing Strange to get away. I want that cloak to have its own movie. Fair enough.
Fair enough.
Very good. And finally, Ralph Harless said, from before we get started, does anyone want out, all the way until Cap lands on the ground with the shield after taking out the Jet in Winter Soldier. If that scene is on TV, you watch it all. Every time.
Yeah, legit. Okay.
Very good moments.
I know we both love Winter Soldier.
Yes,
right?
we do.
Maybe you more than I do.
Surprisingly not. And I
Okay.
know why you say that,
know, right,
but
right.
it's not actually a thing.
Okay, fair enough. But yeah, no, I remember seeing that in the theater, that particular scene in the theater, and I was like, oh my God, they're doing it. Like they're giving us Captain America. This is awesome.
Yeah, there he was, right?
Right, 100%. So, yeah, especially, first of all, thank you. There were tons of people, especially on the Free Comic Book Day page. There was tons of people who just chimed in with their favorites.
Awesome.
It was really hard to pare them down. Actually ended up with a lot of Captain America, which I thought was really interesting because I think the general attitude is that Iron Man's like everybody's favorite.
Right.
But a lot of Captain America was like moments where
Yeah.
like peppered in like a
Super
lot of
good
those comments.
moments, for sure.
But I was curious, what are some of yours? Like at least like we should at least give two, I kind of feel.
Okay.
So what is yours? What is one of yours?
So Endgame is the most fresh in my mind.
Okay.
So I'm going to roll with that.
Okay.
Just because it's easier on my poor sad memory right now for whatever reason. I mean, I do love Winter Soldier, and I really love the Thor movies, but Endgame was just so good that it stuck with me like
Yeah.
you wouldn't believe,
Oh,
right?
yeah,
So absolutely, when everybody appears after Steve is feeling like, oh my gosh, I don't have any backup, this
Right.
is the end, and then all the circles open up and everybody shows up, like I lost it. That
Right,
moment
right.
was just so satisfying, and like I started crying. It was just so good and intense, and
Nice.
just a great culmination
Yeah.
of the entire MCU, right? And then I'm gonna do two more.
Okay.
They're
all right,
small.
Let's do it.
But they're both Steve moments.
Okay. Yeah. All right.
And Steve versus Steve,
Right. Yeah.
just
great.
so sassy. And seeing the difference in his character development there was really cool. Because old Steve is still like, Captain America Steve, and new Steve is like, okay, yeah, we get it, all right,
Right, yeah.
fine, come on. It's
Right,
just
yeah,
so
yeah.
good to see how he developed in a single bit there. And then, of course, in the elevator where you think they're going to do the whole does anyone want to get out thing, and then he whispers Hail Hydra.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So good. Like chills, and you're like, oh man, he got him.
Right. Without using his fist, which I always thought was kind
Yeah,
of interesting.
yeah.
'Cause I think typically we're used to like Steve Rogers just punching his way out of a situation.
So subversive. and
Right.
good.
I also thought it was interesting. I actually rewatched Thor: Dark World and Age of Ultron, and I went to see Endgame this week. And to your point about the Steve versus Steve thing, they make a big joke about him saying language in like Age
Yes,
of Ultron.
right.
And like he kind of curses a little bit more in this
does,
movie. So
yeah.
again, the change is there. Like
I remember in the theater when I first saw Endgame, the theater said language when Steve cursed, and I thought that was
that's
great.
beautiful. But and that's kind of the beauty of the MCU. Like
Exactly.
it's participation on a level that I think I'll go ahead and say no franchise has really allowed audience participation on that level. Like it's not, of course, fully interactive because they're
Right.
telling their story, but at the same time, the audience is invested in a way that you can't really find anywhere else. So.
They've absolutely revolutionized this whole thing.
100%, absolutely. For me, actually, my favorites. I'm going to also do maybe more than two, so we're on the same plane. First of all, in the first Avengers movie, I've heard a lot of people say that the first half of the movie is a little dull. I actually really like the first half of the movie because A, it's Joss Whedon, and Joss Whedon writes great dialogue. And there's an opening bit early in the film where Loki and Fury are like confronting each other for the first time. Loki shoots down in the portal. He kind of like takes out a bunch of S.H.I.E.L.D. agents. And there's a back and forth between Fury and Loki that I absolutely love.
Yeah.
Because you have two really charismatic actors, like just chewing on juicy dialogue. And there's a bit in there particularly that I love where Loki says something like, an ant has no quarrel with a boot. And Fury's response is, are you planning to step on us?
Right, yeah.
But like it's just a great use of Samuel L. Jackson and Tom Hiddleston at the same time. Also, it sets up a joke later in the film because Loki's going around poking people in the chest with a scepter. And I remember the first time I saw it, I was like, that's a little dinky. But then you get to the end of the film where he actually confronts Tony Stark and he tries to do it.
Dink.
Right, yeah.
Dink.
And it doesn't take.
That happens sometimes.
Exactly, right.
So good.
And I love that because it's a callback in a lot of ways because they've established early on, like, the Infinity Stones, we don't know they're Infinity Stones yet, but the Infinity Stones can't like impact each other the way that they're like, they'll cancel each other out, which Tony has technically Infinity Stone energy in his chest.
Fair enough, yeah.
So I just thought that was really interesting. The other one isn't so much a moment, but a theme. Something I noticed a while back, which I think is actually a really nice sentiment, which is at the end of Avengers, Maria Hill asked Nick Fury specifically, like, how will we know if they'll just come back? How will we know if they answer the call? And he's like, because we'll need them to. And in the Winter Soldier, which is also part of, which is phase 2, Black Widow says point blank to the Senate or whatever, like, you guys won't do anything to us because you need us, right? And then at the end of Iron Man 3, Iron Man, after going through all these things as Tony Stark, not really with his suit, and actually after throwing his I can't think of the name of it right now. Arc reactor. Throwing his arc reactor, he says, I am Iron Man. And Civil War ends on the same note, which is like, when you need us, we'll be there. And I've always loved that because, like, in a weird way, and I don't know if this is intentional or not, but like, the DCEU thing was more of a conflict with the Marvel Cinematic Universe at the time. But by contrast, like having the DC heroes just kind of incapable of getting themselves together, right? And the Marvel heroes like kind of saying like, no matter what happens, the heroes are going to answer the call.
That's true.
I absolutely love that.
Yeah,
that
is a beautiful sentiment.
It's a nice
That's
sentiment.
really good.
And it's reflected again in Endgame because we open with Steve Rogers saying like, he's lying to himself saying we have to move on. And halfway through the film, he's like, I can't do that. But then ultimately he does move on.
Yeah.
And it's just a great character arc. So
It is.
I just absolutely love that. I think that like, they've done something, they've been really right by the fans. They've done really right by new fans and old fans, and
Absolutely.
it's just fun. So
It is.
yeah.
It's so well done.
It's so well done.
Start to finish.
Right. And like, I just keep picking up on stuff that like I like every time I catch one of those movies, which makes the rewatch value even better.
Yes.
So a lot of fun. The MCU, bravo guys. You did something unprecedented. Like, and yeah, so.
My heart.
So that's almost it for this show this week. But we have some last bit of business we have to take care of.
Of course.
Yeah. So what we got?
The old comic shop shout out. So if you guys want to have your favorite local comic shop featured on the show, hit us up on social media wherever you can find us. Use the hashtag #SupportYourLCS. Tell us what your favorite local comic shop is, and we could feature you. This week, we are taking a look at Fantastico Comics in Mexico, and that was sent in by Art Devil. So we'll leave you guys with some photos of that place at the end of the show.
I've been itching to get. Well, we did Canada once, but I've been trying to find like one that's not in America, and I was so happy to find this one because it's interesting to me how like comic culture is different but the same everywhere. You know what I mean? Like people interacted with it in different ways, but at the same time, we're all kind of like sharing the same experience and kind of like getting the same thing out of it, which I think is really awesome. Shout out to Fantastico. I thought that was awesome.
Very cool.
What else we got? Is that it?
That's it.
That's it. All right.
Finito.
So, hey guys, thanks again for joining us this week on PREVIEWSworld Weekly. Please put some of your favorite Marvel moments in the comments, in addition to participating in the Bruce Lee contest. And that's it. I have been Troy Jeffrey Allen.
And I'm Thea, and we'll see you at the spinner rack.
Thanks for watching PREVIEWSworld Weekly. If you like the show, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on any future episodes.